The booster course pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was quite the success, and once again, we're looking at all changes and differences made for the returning courses in Wave 6 of the DLC. The second race of the Spiny Cup is 3DS Rosalina's Ice World. Based on the environment of Super Mario Galaxy, it's a frigid planet with a village powered by Comet Observatory technology, an ice cavern with branching tunnels and ice spikes, and a frozen lake with paths above and below the icy surface, complete with frolicking penguins. So how does the most recent update differ from past installments? Let's find out. Rosalina's Ice World in Mario Kart 7 seemed very inspired by the Cosmic Cove Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy 2. They shared many elements in common, such as the enclosed waters, conditional ice, starry skies, and even penguins. The visuals were completely revamped for Tour, but not much affected how the track was played. For Switch, this new model was enhanced even further, and some significant additions came in the forms of half-pipes before the lake, and a shortcut at the last bend. But we spotted many other smaller differences between each version. Let's start with the gameplay changes. At the Star Arch, the wall on the right side was cut short, and both walls were lowered, from the spiral all the way up to the lake. For 8 Deluxe, the truncated right wall reverted to its length seen in 7. Immediately after the tunnel, half-pipes on the right and left up to the lake were installed. Using the second half-pipe, drivers can land on the ice atop the lake every time. In the original, the ice flow at the start of the lake cracked and sunk silently at about 45 seconds into the race. For Tour, this event happens at some point before reaching it on the second lap. Now, it occurs with a shattering sound after approximately 42 seconds have passed. With Tour's update, the basin walls around the lake were significantly altered, but the ice was only slightly modified and the snowdrift was flattened more. And racers can trick off the ice at the end now. Penguins originally leapt into the ice at about a minute into the race, following each other back into the water by the furthest dome. Underwater, they would circle the far end a few times, swerve around pillars, and re-emerge at 2 minutes 37 seconds, repeating the process every 97 seconds. However, penguins did not appear when racing online. In the mobile version, penguins would waddle on the ice on the first lap, but they only started to pop out of the water in time for the second lap, staggered differently. Penguins have a radically different routine now. They're seen hopping in and out at other locations, staggered enough to be found on the ice and underwater at all times. These little critters even belly slide now, and one penguin stays marching back and forth at the far end of the ice constantly. Down below, rock formations were placed along the edges and pillars of the lake bed ever since Tour. Both paths merge at the entrance to the ice cavern. For 3DS, the ice spikes were completely indestructible when playing in time trials mode. They became breakable in all modes in Tour, no longer slowing racers when hitting them. Weird. They impede movement again for Switch, except when boosting, but their count was reduced from 7 to 3, with those remaining in slightly different spots. At the fork in Tour, the edge along the right path became rugged and the dash panel was pushed to the left to stay on solid ice. The second dash panel apparently was widened, taking up more of the lane, and the third dash panel may have been handled the same way, only to a lesser degree. As a new shortcut for those with a boost item in 8 Deluxe, a snowy ledge was placed in the chasm after the cave, with a wooden ramp at the end to reach the finish line a little more quickly. Cool. Unsurprisingly, the aesthetic changes are much larger in number. There are the general lighting, texture, and mild coloration differences certainly, but the starry sky is where things start to become interesting. For Tour, purple nebulae covered the expanse. Meanwhile, the 3 floating planets viewable from different vantage points around the course were based on Gateway Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy. Originally, these were direct copies from Mario's Adventure. Now, the sky has been filled with colorful galaxies. Gorgeous. Back on land, evergreen trees have been planted in snowy areas ever since Tour, which are made up of many more polygons now compared to their mobile counterparts. And frost that originally was on structures everywhere, road included, melted away in Tour. Furthermore, the addition of spectators in 8 Deluxe makes this place feel a little less lonely. At the starting line, the banner first had orange gradient text outlined with black on white background, held up by rope attached to star-topped golden poles. For Tour's makeover, the banner text turned dark blue, printed on gold and blue framed canvas with checkered corner accents, and the poles were redesigned to feature 2 types of gold and hollow stars. The banner now blows in the wind, presenting the text like the starry sky, with aqua checkered accents. In 7, the starting line itself had 14x3 checks in white and 2 shades of red, which changed in Tour to 15x3 checks in white and 2 shades of blue. This was transformed once again to having 17x3 in white and 2 shades of aqua, matching the banner, with the edge squares cut off. The road was revised since 3DS, with many smaller circular cobblestone patterns, and the addition of 4-point stars and a shallow brick curb. For Switch, the cobblestone pattern was offset, featuring a new edge, and all but the curb was given a glossy finish. With Tour's renovation, the fencing with purple draping was updated to have no bars and fewer poles, with stars attached to every other remaining pole. Their end positions were tweaked a bit. Matching valances were readjusted, supported exclusively by remade poles instead of being attached to domes, and the hanging gems that used to be like those of the central structure became 4-point stars. The snow-covered domes in the village were modeled after those in the Comet Observatory for all versions. For Tour, each was simplified to having a single glowing star on the door, and snow landed on the chimney pipe. And some domes were rearranged, reduced from 7 to 6 in total. Star lampposts went from having 3 stars to just 1, with the whole look perfectly matching the valance poles. These used to be very close to the domes, but they were moved to be spread out and more in line with the fencing. All around the village, the height and overall shape of the walls were modified. And in the middle of the settlement has been a structure that resembles the iconic part of the Comet Observatory, likely supplying power for the inhabitants. It originally had a tapered base, but this was replaced by a brick base with some details inside. There also was a pattern swap for the roof, an added golden rim, and more gold near the top. Smoke rises from the domes now, and stepping stones and sets of bushes were provided for each of the village domes only. More bushes grew beside each lamppost, and the stars atop them clearly glow, separating them further from the banner's hollow stars. The energy core in the central structure now glows like a supernova, and the base uses thinner layers of mortar between the bricks. A couple of crates were placed by it for observers as well. For the revamp, the road's transition to snow became clean-cut rather than smooth. And in 8 Deluxe specifically, the curb's visibility was extended, going deeper into the snowy area. The star arch ditched the big star with eyes for 3 equal stars in Tour, and the rest became more vibrant, temporarily, with a different snow heap than before. Underneath the arch, the transition to ice was made much more apparent. Embossed arrows on the walls here and beyond were removed. And further below, the bottomless pit faded straight into darkness instead of having the visual tears from the original. A large icy cliff was added in the background, viewed from the start of the spiral, and the other side of the precipice around the village became visible. For Switch, one of the trees outside the spiral was moved for some reason. The tunnel ceiling in Tour went from being level to having an arched shape, with a different arrangement of icicles hanging from above. And the icy ramp preceding the lake changed from a sculpted piece with chiseled arrows to being a purely natural formation. Cracks now can be seen all across the icy surface of the frozen lake, and the aqua-hued water around it used to be indigo in Tour, but before that, it was a blue that appeared to flow rightward. The light on the lake bed danced like the waves above, drifting forward and only a bit to the right. For Tour, this display was replaced by stationary green, magenta, and blue lights, with most appearing to be coming from the aquatic life. Speaking of which, the coral, seaweed, and smaller rock types were swapped out for others, being in different spots than before, and joined by sea anemone shells. In 8 Deluxe, a single pair of fronds of magenta seaweed was added on the rightmost wall. The light coming from such organisms is much dimmer, but celestial light that pierces through the depths helps to illuminate the area. Walls all around here, archways included, were given a different sculpted look ever since Tour, and the ice above sunk below the surface in tapered form. At the point of convergence, the branching crack above the entrance to the ice cavern was replaced with a simpler narrow divide with icicles above the opening. Matching the retextured interior walls, the cave ceiling went from having wide, dark green cracks with icicles hanging down to being more arched with skylights, moving the icicles into groups at lower elevations. And the green and blue lights from unidentified sources seem to have been replaced by the celestial light to shine down from the skylights. The breakable ice spikes became brighter than other ice, but only Switch has chilly water vapor forming around their bases. For Tour, the snowy shelves after the fork were adjusted in both height and shape. On the right path, the Star Shroom was turned and buried a bit deeper in the snow, with the nearby hole produced from its crashing matching its shape and rubble scattered around it. But wait, now a new hole with light shining through it formed just before that made by the Star Shroom, possibly made by the enthusiastic onlookers. Ahead, the boosted ramp has different dimensions, but the modification didn't seem to affect anything. And the cave exit has a taller ceiling part, with icicles lining this opening too. Just outside, a lone lamppost was installed to the left, on the other side of the chasm. The edge of the chasm was made rugged, with no powder snow dripping down the far side. And like the inverse early on, the transition of the path back to snow became more obvious, with another clean cut when returning to the paved road. Neat, literally. We discovered some auditory changes too. For 3DS, there was a chilling wind and recurrent glistening effect in the opening and outside areas, but no environmental soundscape was present in Tour, other than the new echoing of racers in the ice cave, and the bouncy noise when hitting a penguin became a squeaky cry. For 8 Deluxe, underwater ambiance and the wind return, while the glistening effect is more obviously subtle chimes. Fascinating. What's also interesting is the music for Rosalina's Ice World. It may be best described as an experimental style with hints of drum and bass, electronica, and contemporary jazz mixed in. Part of what gives it that cold, disconcerting sound is the melody played in a B Phrygian scale, with mode and key changes as the piece progresses. The instruments that add to the feeling include unconventional performances from piano, synth, organ, bells, and electronic drums. The original A section melody pans left and then repeats with the organ louder and panned right, unique to this version. Also exclusive are the sleigh bells that play in the B section after the key change from G to C, and the transition looping back to the A section has a riser only for the organ here. How otherworldly. For the Switch arrangement, the percussion style in the intro is much closer to that of drum and bass. Here, the pads mildly rise in pitch amidst the piano's jazz chords, ending in a new crescendo. The A section includes a lower synth bass that alternates between octaves. It also features an open hi-hat bolstering the snare. Meanwhile, the melody replaces organ with synth, and its repeat is an octave lower, and joining this is a higher-pitched synth that is plucked softly after every second beat. For the B section, the percussion returns to drum and bass style. The melody has synth supporting the piano rather than strings, and a tubular bell is layered atop the organ counterpoint. The synth bass at the end of this section revs at a higher octave before falling. Lastly, the bridge back to the A section seems to have slightly different chords and notes, while the riser affects all chromatic instruments now, except the bass, which continues to fall. Now that's a more cohesive, captivating sound. And that's about it for all changes we found in 3DS Rosalina's Ice World. It's a great take on a classic track we didn't expect to be added as DLC, allowing for even more options and opportunities every lap than ever before. But what do you think? Have you found any notable changes that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more coverage of the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and other things Nintendo too. Thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao.